Yo, what up, my dudes? I was already thinking of shooting a video while walking outside. But then I was like, oh, I can capture the line for masks because of the coronavirus going on. So there, catch a little bit of that. So as you've seen in the title, here's some thoughts on going with the flow. I suppose another interesting element of shooting this video while I'm walking outside is I will have to go with the flow of whatever noises or whatever I may run into. Now, that's actually one of the many. The thoughts on go with the flow is like a lot of people here go with the flow, or there's this concept in Taoism of Wu Wei or Wei Wu Wei, where it's kind of like basically just going with, with whatever's happening. And that's actually that's an important skill to master, but it is only one of several methods or uses of flow. And for flow, I'm going to use the analogy of a river because, going with the flow, just kind of like floating down a river. I'll use that analogy, but I might give some real world examples if they come to mind. And to define flow really quickly, like water flow is easy, everybody knows that. But life flow is a little bit more complex, and that's basically determining, just like a river flows, the situations or events in your life might flow in a particular direction. First thing that came to mind for some reason is work, and maybe the kind of work you do, or if you're a freelancer or whatever. If all of a sudden people start asking for a certain kind of work, like you're a web designer, and people start asking more and more for blogs instead of e-stores or whatever, you might start flowing in the direction of building more blog websites for people instead of store websites. So that's just a general idea of the flow of life. Or it might just be a huge crowd of people coming, and you're like, oh shit, and and you go with the flow of the people. So flow can be, it can be all over the place. But what I wanted to say with that is something I think a lot of people get wrong, maybe when they're first getting into Taoism, even if they're not into Taoism and they're just thinking like, hey man, go with the flow. Going with the flow, we'll go back to the river, is a good idea. Like, first of all, if you're flowing, you need a destination. I have a destination right now. I'm going to, I don't know if I'm going to talk all the way there, but I'm going to pick up the jackets I need to mail the Tai Chi books. So I have a destination. So anytime you're trying to go with the flow, you need a destination, you need an objective. As I wrote a little bit earlier in a Reddit thread, I'll put down there, like, even if your objective is to not have objectives, that is an objective. And if you go with the flow and you don't have an objective, you might find yourself in a situation where now you have a lot of objectives that you have to deal with when you didn't want any. So you need a destination. So back to the river. If you're on a river and it's kind of calm and chill and taking you in the direction of the river, and where you want to go is somewhere on the river, going with the flow is exactly what you want to do. That's perfect. But maybe I should have hit the side streets. But if your objective is off the river, maybe you can stay in the river for a little bit, but then you might have to get off and walk. Like if the flow isn't working for you, if it isn't, working for you and your agenda, you might have to, go for a walk. So that's, you don't want to go with the flow. Or sometimes the flow, maybe you don't even want to go with it. You want to take resources from it. So in the river example, if you have a farm or need water, you might redirect the flow somewhere to get that resource. What's a real world? The real world example of that is, I don't know, like advertising and marketing. You know, like that redirects the attention of people to go, maybe I'll pick up a flower for Magda on the way home. Look at that, they got me. That's why you have a store on a street with foot traffic, people flow. So yeah, sometimes you want to take a flow that is there and redirect it, right? Sometimes you might want to harness the power of the flow. Like with water, you would make a dam, or make a water mill, or you know something like that. I haven't come up with it's a real life example of harnessing flow. I mean, those two are real life examples of harnessing water flow. But if I thought about more, I'm sure I'd come up with an example. But there's sometimes you want to like harness the flow for energy. I don't know if this is exactly a good example, but taking advantage of a flow, I just uploaded that video about the coronavirus. Like there's flows that happen in the collective mind, and as far as like if you want to be a YouTuber or get attention or get views, people take advantage of new movies coming out, new news. When you make videos about that kind of stuff, you take advantage of kind of a flow of the collective conscious, right? And then you have the flow. Sometimes the flow, again, the flow is going against your objective, and you got to go. You got to swim against it. In a river situation, it's a helmet shop. Lots of different helmets if you want to be stylish. In a river situation, you might catch yourself going over a waterfall, and you got to like swim against the flow and get away from that. Same thing in life. Life might be taking you in a direction. If you're like, man, go with the flow, it's all good, and you have no objective, no destination, you might find yourself going over a waterfall. So sometimes you got to go against the flow. And the final version I have is actually comes back around full circle to going with the flow again, except for this time you're going with the flow in order to save yourself, right? Like if on a river, if all of a sudden it's like whitewater rapids, and it's like it's crazy, you might have to go with the flow, but just to keep yourself alive, to survive the crazy river rapids, and you would go with the flow long enough in order to get to safety, get back to the shore, catch yourself on a rock. So that's kind of like the final version of flow. So there isn't just going with the flow. There's going with the flow to make to take advantage of the flow. There's harnessing the flow. There's redirecting the flow, going against the flow, and going with the flow, but not to get you somewhere for survival. And because life isn't a river, there's like millions of flows going on all over the place. And when you develop, really clear awareness about where you're trying to go, and then awareness of all the different flows, you're able to take advantage of all kinds of different flows, to advance you towards your objective, or in the vernacular of my philosophical system I'm putting together, to advance you towards your dream, and then you're flowing to your dream. And it's funny, that's all like I actually have 3 different breakdowns for flow. So that's just one of the breakdowns. The other 2, which I'm sure videos will emerge of in the future, you have the going with the flow kind of flow. You have the flow state. If you're not familiar with that, I can post a link to an article about it really quick. But flow state is just basically like being in the zone. It feels good. It's something, you know, that you can manufacture on your own. So flow state, you got going with the flow, and then you got like workflow or life flow, and like your life processes for your routines, your habits, your systems, your tools for how you roll through life and get to your dreams and make life but a dream. Anyway, that's the end of my talk. It's into my thoughts on flow. Where I'm going is right down there on the other side. But alrighty guys, peace.